It's Black History Month, October 2025, and it is a month to spotlight, Black people. And these are people from all over the world, to be honest with you. People from the Caribbean, from Africa, and just Black people from everywhere. And I feel like sometimes as well, we get lost in what is the point of this month. At some stages, it started to feel a little bit gimmicky. It started to feel a little bit forced. I have to be honest, for a couple of years, I took a step back from taking part in some events and some conversations because it also felt a little bit triggering. But this year, I think after having a break from discussing kind of the subject, this year I've had loads of really interesting conversations that I thought I'd bring onto this platform. And notably, I was at the exec brunch just a couple of days ago, and it is an event run by a couple of Zimbabwean women, and they are forming a space, a community, a network of other women that can celebrate each other. And these are women from, business owners to professionals to maybe you just moved into the country. And yeah, it's a very positive environment. I love the excellence around it in terms of dressing up and also just being your authentic self and your positive self, or even however way you feel. I just feel like I could bring my positivity into the room and not feel judged. So during that event, one of the speakers were talking about, okay, this is how I treat my family members, or this is how I have elevated in my business. And someone asked, okay, how do you feel about black tax? How do you feel about that subject? And I thought that is so interesting. That's definitely something that I want to bring onto the podcast to discuss because we need to talk. I don't think black tax is exclusive to Black people. It's certainly something that a lot of people that have moved from one country to the other or people that have dependents have felt. But I've got the definition here. Black tax refers to the ongoing financial support provided by successful Black individuals to their less fortunate family members. A practice with roots in South African apartheid. That was interesting. I didn't know that. But now widespread in other countries, driven by cultural obligations like philosophy of Ubuntu, but also by socio-economic factors. This support, which can include paying off, school fees for young people, family members, through to medical expenses, or literally just living costs. And it serves as a duty and a sign of respect, but can also feel like a heavy and stressful burden, impacting the professionals' own, financial goals and their well-being as well. Speaking as a Zimbabwean who came here, and I was 11 and my parents came and they were in their 40s at that point, and they both had, their parents and also loads of siblings. Between them, I think they've got 11 siblings each. And with those siblings comes, their children and grandchildren. And just seeing how it was a point in terms of it was something that it's not even up for discussion every month, sending money back home to look after someone. And specifically, I know my mum made sure that a couple of my nieces were looked after, and she paid for their school fees for something like 6 years or longer, and to make sure that they have a good start in life. And yeah, so seeing what that did and just the opportunities that came from sending money back home, I think it's a positive thing for sure. But something that is often discussed is people that are in, maybe in the UK or the Caribbean, Australia, wherever they are, or they're doing well, even if they are in that country as well, and they're looking after their loved ones. sometimes their financial status isn't great. However, they're sending money back home. And that's what I would like to discuss today. So here is what a couple of the ladies that were at the event, this is what they had to say about how they would manage with the subject and how they would manage with expectations for looking after other people. So yeah, here's the clip.
I think for us, because obviously I think is it Kelly, the host, she mentioned about two different generations. I'm from a generation that doesn't believe in black tax while running a business, and my mum is from a generation that does. And I think it's a balance where sometimes I have to sort of give her a leeway, and in doing that, she's obviously learned, and then she comes back to me to fix it. So I think with a lot of things, I used to fight back a lot, but then I think I've started to let her see what I'm trying to say. And in doing that, she's starting to listen a lot more, and it's to do with education, like you've said, exposure, whereas my no is a no, but her no is a oh, maybe, but yes. So I think it's about looking at where we're all coming from. One generation, that's what they've known. Another generation sees the effects of it, because as children, especially as immigrants, we've obviously watched our parents send money back home, help relatives come into the country, do a lot, and it takes away from your children. So your children grow up not wanting to even hear it, see it, accept it, but it's about letting them be, and eventually as time goes along, they start to understand and they start to see the effects that it has. But I think it's just about giving each generation grace to understand the other.
Thank you. As a venture, you've got to have clear intentions. When I started back in 2011, I set my family around, and I actually said, this is my business. It's not a family business. It's my business. I will not employ any family member into my business because I want the freedom to hire and fire. Now, if I fire a cousin, the whole family won't be there. However, I am happy to support you to establish your own businesses alongside mine. So be clear on your intentions when you start, and that way no one will bother you.
Okay, so let's discuss why it is positive. I came across this article by Natalie Magosha, and funny enough, she's also Zimbabwean, and she was writing about black tax and what it means to her. And she is describing how she was looked after by family members, and she went to school because of, the support from the people that had the finances to be able to support her. And later on, she has done really well, went to university, got herself a job, and she's now kind of paying it forward and supporting her siblings, her family members through school, and sending money home as well. And I think that this is beautifully written in terms of explaining what it is and explaining how it comes about, and seeing the reaction from other nationalities that don't have to send money home, how they might view it as, hold on a minute, are you okay? Do you have the money? So Natalie actually says that at some stage when she was sending money back home, she was getting into debt. Now, this is one of the issues where a lot of people will be helping others out, but actually they're ending up in a worse position. So there's the analogy of the airplane. If you're a parent and you've got a young one next to you and the plane is going down, first you need to look after yourself before you help your child. Why? Because if you are not well, how are you going to be able to help your child? So first put one on for yourself and then help them out. And I think of that in terms of like this situation where you're sending money back home, but you don't have it. And what if you lose the place that you're living in? Or what if you lose your job and you no longer can send it back because you haven't looked after yourself? So I feel like this is something that we need to consider when we are thinking about kind of supporting others, which I'm going to repeat that it is a positive thing. I've seen the positive effects of it, and Natalie is also describing kind of like she was helped out, so she wants to help out as well. And it's so interesting kind of looking at it. I know we're calling it black tax, but ultimately this is a responsibility that people that have moved from one country to the other, or that are doing quite well, and they send money back home. And in here as well, in the article, she describes that the UK sends billions abroad each year in remittances. India alone receives over 9 billion, and Pakistan almost 3 billion. And then the next one is Nigeria, 1 billion is sent back home. It is absolutely large numbers that we're talking about. And I love the fact that people do this out of respect, people do this out of love, and people do this because of the community that they are trying to support. And one of the points that I wrote down in terms of like the positives of black tax is actually that you are helping somebody else out. And if you help one person, there are ripple effects, and then they can help the other, and they can help the other. And before you know it, the whole community is thriving. And I actually really love thinking of it in that way, rather than the individual kind of like, okay, well, I'm not going to send money, I'm not going to help somebody else out. So I quite love that it comes from a place of supporting each other, especially in our community. But I've also seen the negatives of this, especially maybe helping out a family member or sending money back home, thinking that there's a project that you're doing with them, and then turning up and finding out that actually nothing happened. You sent money home, but nothing has come of it. And that is really, really common. And that is one of the negative effects in terms of helping out in that way, rather than maybe sending different resources or helping out in a way where they can help themselves going forward, maybe making an impact in a different way rather than sending money, maybe influence in another way, or sending books, for example, or donations, or setting up charities, for example, so other people can donate money. It's not all coming from you. And yeah, so that's something where I felt like this has been a negative effect, but sometimes there's like one bad apple out of everybody, and then they can spoil it for everybody else. Another bad effect is it causes stress. It causes stress for people that might feel like they don't have the finances to be helping somebody else out, but they're tied to this. And if someone needs to go to the hospital, for example, there's barely any insurance, although there's some wonderful companies that have been formed in the last few years that provide insurance, especially medical insurance. But sometimes if you don't have it set up and a family member desperately needs like medicine or surgery, then you need to send it. It's hard to say no because, it could be life or death. So there's a lot of stress as well, and a lot of expectations. Seeing that people maybe living back home are actually living a great life. They're living in bigger houses, everything they're catered for, compared to yourself in the UK, for example. And then they expect you to be sending money back home, but they don't help out like the same family member. So I think it's also expectation sometimes in terms of who should be more generous, the person that lives abroad or the person that lives in that same country. Now, I'm speaking specifically, in the case that I have seen. I keep saying back home because I'm Zimbabwean, as I mentioned, but there is black tax also in the US that has been researched and documented in terms of that a lot of graduates or a lot of professionals that have done well, but their family members still in the same country require support because they haven't. There are a lot of people that are the first to go to university or the first to get, a certain job or earn a certain amount. So this isn't just specific to maybe Africans that have moved to another country. So I feel like it's really, really interesting, and I would love to hear from, different people that are from different walks of life, even different races, because I know this applies to a lot of people. Something else that then happens that I mentioned in terms of the example in America, and it would happen for other people as well, is that if you're sending money back home and if you're helping somebody else out, that's taken away from the money that you can keep. And a lot of people might end up not kind of benefiting from putting money in savings or putting money in investments and then growing their wealth because they're helping somebody else out. Now, I'm not saying this like a negative thing, because I genuinely believe in helping other people out, but this is one of the results, this is one of the effects that then happen. Back to Natalie, and she says, I absolutely love what she says here, that hearing the stories from friends around the world reminds me that I'm part of something bigger, a global pattern of families relying on one another across borders, across generations. It makes me feel less alone, and it gives me strength to keep finding balance. I absolutely love this because of the community feel of it, the togetherness, that we're all, one, and we're all experiencing life together. So if you can help somebody, that's not a bad thing. You're not in it on your own. This wouldn't be a From Roots to Fruits episode if I don't give you some seeds to sow. So let's say that you are in this position, or you know someone that is currently going through this. The first thing to do is, I'm going to say, create a budget. The first thing to do is just to understand what your financial situation is. What's coming in, what's going out, what do you have left? At least if you have a budget and you can work out that actually, after I spend everything each month, I can afford to, leave £50 for support and then put that in a savings pot for when you need it and you've got that money. It's not taken away from your day to day. So that is one thing that you could do. Or you could set aside, like each month you're sending a certain amount, but it's built into your budget. And if you can't afford it, then that means that you probably need to go and earn a little bit more so that you can afford it. Or the next step is to set boundaries. So speak to your family members and tell them that, okay, hold on a second, this is how much I earn. I know you probably expect this, but this is genuinely how much I can afford. The cost of living, especially in the UK, keeps going up. So if you cannot afford to offer that support, you need to speak up, because now you're looking after yourself. So then when you can afford to do it, then you can pick that back up. And Roots to Fruits started in 2020, and initially it was jumping on Zoom and just offering just financial guidance. This is something that I'd been doing for myself, and at that stage I'd bought myself a flat, and I was doing quite well in terms of the role that I had, and I noticed that the people around me needed the support. So I offered it up. So I felt secure in offering support in that way. So perhaps it's not always about sending money. It could be offering support. So maybe if it's not financial management and, like teaching someone how to budget, it could be something else. So it could be upskilling them in some sort of way so that they can find, a way to sustain themselves, to help themselves. So it could be offering up, tutoring for some sort of soft skill, like this is how we do X, or sending them links to free resources so that they can help themselves. It's not all about the finances, but it's spotting how else you can support somebody. I asked our audience if they experienced this and if they would like to provide, anything to kind of let us know what their experience has been so that we can add it to the episode. And someone then wrote that it is really tough. I recently moved to the UK and I've got my family back home. I am looking after, my mum, who is back home living with my sister. So I send money every month, but I'm left with nothing. And I want to save and I want to invest and I want to do all the things that you talk about at Roots to Fruits. But I do not have the finances, but I can't stop helping my family members and I can't stop helping my family members and I genuinely don't know what to do. And I think that this is a reality for a lot of people. So again, I'll repeat that, setting those boundaries and just being open and honest. They might think that, oh, you used to be able to do it and now you're saying that you can't. What's going on? But if you're open and honest and they love you too, then they will understand if you tell them that you're struggling as well. Be transparent with them and then let them know when you will send something home, and maybe lean into other people in the community. So if you've got other siblings, maybe they can support as well, or other family members, maybe they can support. So it's not all on your shoulders, because that stress, that financial stress is really real and it can turn into something else. So I would say create that boundary, have those open conversations, and then see if you can, impact your own financial status by increasing your income or reducing other costs to be able to continue to help. And then lastly, I want to touch on the debt element, where I've read, doing some research on this subject, where people will get into debt to be able to kind of help somebody else out. So it could be borrowing to send money if it's someone's funeral, but now you're in debt, and the interest that you're going to have to pay back to, pay off whatever, if it's a loan or if it's an overdraft, whatever it is, or a credit card, then that is leaving you in a situation where you're not going to be able to be helpful, in the future. So I would say, again, with the budgeting aspect and putting money away for this, for the future, so that you don't have to go into debt. You're using money that you've put away anyway, in a little bit like an emergency fund, really, but you call it your support my community fund. Yeah, let's make it a thing, the support my community fund. So that is it for the episode today. Honestly, this is a really, really interesting topic, and it is more complicated than the few tips that I've offered up, because there are various scenarios that are really complicated, and I completely understand that, and we can't solve it within a month or a year. This is something that generations are going to have to work on, and I don't think we should be extreme in terms of not helping at all. The generation, I'm someone that came as a child, so I'm not as close to quite a lot of the people that are still back home, compared to my mum, and my father as well, who are very close to their siblings and other family members. So they felt that pull and that connection to people that they're helping out, compared to myself. But I don't think that we should now feel like we're a little bit more removed and don't help anybody. I definitely think that community feel that feeling like you're supporting somebody else and then seeing the return, seeing the dividends at some stage when, that child that you were sending money for school fees and now they're graduating university, I think that is so priceless. So I really hope that we continue to support each other, but we create the boundaries that are necessary to make sure that we're still okay. And that is my input on the subject. Let me know what you think. That is all for us today, guys. Join us next week for some more seeds to sow. And please remember to support us by following and leave a rating on our show on whichever platform you're listening to us from. To those watching on YouTube, please leave a like and a subscribe to our channel. All of your support goes a long way. Thank you so much for joining us today. And remember, keep shining.